Multiplying numbers by 10. When you multiply a number, it becomes bigger. So say, for example, you have 2 and you multiply it by 5, you would have 5 lots of 2. The number has become 5 times bigger. Therefore, when you multiply a number by 10, it becomes 10 times bigger. So if I had a 1, so I've got 1 here, say, for example, if I was to multiply that by 10, I would have 10 lots of 1, and 10 lots of 1 is actually a 10. So the number would move into the next place value column. So it would no longer be here, and the number would have to put a 0 here to show that that's now a 0 ones. If I was to have, say, a 5, the same thing would apply. So for example, if I had a 5 in this column and I was to multiply that by 10, the number would move, and so it would become 50. Equally, if I was to have the number 20, the same thing would happen. So I've got 20, it's multiplied by 10, so I'm going to have 10 lots of 20. Each digit would move, giving me 200. The reason I stop here is because this is where the decimal point would be if there was one, and if all you're going to have after the decimal point is zeros, then there's no need for them to be there. So we ignore this, and we just ensure that we've got the right number of zeros in the right place up to that decimal point. So let's use that information then to have a go at multiplying the questions that we've got at the top here by 10. So we've got 3,250, so let's write that in. We have got 3,250, and we're going to multiply that by 10. So each digit is going to move along one place value column. So there's one here, one there, one there, one there. So there 3 would be here, the 2 here, the 5 here, the 0 here, and we would then put another 0 there on the end because there is now 0 ones. It's moved along, so that's where the decimal point would be. So that shows us that 3,250 multiplied by 10 becomes 32,500. So let's use that same method for 456. So let's go for this, 456. In here, I'm going to multiply that by 10, decimal point would be here if it was anywhere, and I would jump each one of these digits, one place value column, sorry, to make them all 10 times bigger, which you can see now leaves us with 4,560, so 4,560. Now if I was to do this without this chart that I've got here, and I was wanting to do it in a way that made this a bit easier, I would label my place value columns, and then I would label them again down here. I'd always add a few more in just in case, and I always add in the decimals as well, and then I would write the number underneath. So I've got 72. Okay, if I'm multiplying it by 10, I know that, as I've said, each digit is going to move one place value column to the left, so it would become 720. So this equals 720. Okay, so we're going to apply the same method as we did a moment ago with multiplying by 10, but this time we're multiplying by 100. Now, as we know, when a digit is multiplied by 10, it moves up one place value column because it has been multiplied by 10. If it was to be going 2 place value columns, it would be times by 10 and times by 10 again, and that we know, of course, is an overarching times by 100. Okay, so we're going to take our number 3,250, and this time, instead of it jumping one place value column because it's being multiplied by 10, it's been multiplied by 100, so therefore it's going to jump 2 place value columns. So I'm going to start with my 3, and I'm going to jump that 1, 2, so the 3 is going to move to there, and then this is going to move 1, 2, so it's going to move to here, and then 1, 2, move to here, and then 1, 2, move to here. So as you can see here, because the digits are together, so you've got 3, then a 2, then a 5, then a 0, you should still have that. You shouldn't have a 3 and then a 0 and then a 2, then a 5. The numbers should remain in the same order and next to one another in the same places. And then what we need to do here, because this is where the decimal point would be, between the ones we've got here and the tenths that we've got here, we're going to put those zeros in to show that we now no longer have anything in our tens column and we still have nothing in the ones column. So that shows us then that 3,250 becomes 325,000. So 325,000. Right, so let's apply that again now for the next question. So we've got 456, we've got ones, tens and hundreds. So over here I'm going to do my ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and underneath I'm going to write my 456, and then I'm going to multiply each of those digits by 100. So 1, 2, so it's going to move to here, 1, 2, so it's going to be right next to it, 1, 2, right next to it, and then the 2 zeros go in the 2 places here at the end where we have moved those digits. So we end up with 45,600. And then finally, if I was to do the same for 72, I've got ones and tens. So I'm going to do thousands, sorry, tens of thousands I'm going to do, thousands, hundreds, tens and ones. You might find it easier to start at the ones and work the other way. Either way works, and you don't miss any out. There's my 72, so this is going to jump 1, 2, so it's going to be here. This is going to jump 1, 2, so it's here, and then the zeros go in there to show that those digits have moved out of those columns. So I've now got 7,200. So again, same process as before. We've got a number that's been multiplied by 1,000. Now we have already looked at how when a number is multiplied by 10, it moves one place value column because it's multiplied by 10. We know now that when we multiply by 100, it moves 2 place value columns, and we know that 10 times 10 times 10 would take us to 1,000. So it would move 1, 2, 3 place value columns, and that would be multiplied by 1,000. So I'm going to apply that to the questions that I've got above. So I've got 3,250. So let's write that in. So 3,250, and I'm going to multiply that by 1,000. So I need to move 1, 2, 3 place value columns to the right. And actually one of the ways I always find this quite handy to remember is that I've got 1, 2, 3 zeros here, and that's how many jumps I need to make with my digits. So my 3 is going to move 1, 2, 3, so it's going to end up in this column. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you'll see that I end up having to put those zeros in there. So you can see from this question, I'm actually going to put these commas in because it always helps me to read numbers if I put the commas in at the 3 intervals. I have now got 3,250,000. So a much bigger number than I originally started with. So I'm going to use that same method for my next question, which is 456, and I'm going to use this place value chart down here. So I'm going to write the number in, 456. This number is being multiplied by 1,000, so 10 times 10 times 10. That's those 3 jumps that I need to make. So 1, 2, 3, so the 4 ends up here. 1, 2, 3, the 5 here, and 1, 2, 3, and the 6 here. And then obviously those zeros go in until you get to the ones column, and then you stop. So we end up with 456,000. And then finally, if we were to apply that to 72, so let's do our ones and tens, and then so we've got ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands. 72 would start here, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, so it ends up here, and then 1, 2, 3, so it ends up here. So we end up with those zeros going in there, so we end up with 72,000.